The warp is a dangerous place in 40k. Ships may travel there, but always with the risk of demons getting on board. But it's also a place the Inquisition need to know more about, the heart of their enemy's realm. So what ships have the Inquisition sent to spy on the Eye of Terror? How are they protected from the neverborn that wait there in the darkness? And what protections do these ships carry? Let's begin. Every demon world is dangerous and radically different, and none of the laws of gravity and astrophysics apply there. What little the Imperium has known has come from powerful psychers on a vision quest and from Inquisition null ships, which is what we'll be going over today. They are invisible to the creatures of the warp, hidden behind arrays of psychic shields, and those crewing the ship that return do so with their heart filled with hatred for the demonic and their conviction at the demons therein renewed. Those who do not return at all damn themselves to an existence of physical and spiritual torture at the mercy of the neverborn. These ships are equipped with a massive sensor arrays to take physical readings of the Eye's warp worlds and collect data on the various Traitor Legion bases and fortresses. Specially trained psychers watch for signs of chaos contamination within the crew and wrong thinking by monitoring the thoughts and feelings of those on board the null ships. But the information collected is fragmentary, and many are lost to hazards in the Eye or destroyed as their psychic crews are driven insane by the images they have seen, or taken by traitor legions in boarding actions. For these types of expeditions within the Eye, the Mechanicus dub them Exploritas expeditions. What little info they get is stored within the records of the Ordo Malleus, a branch of the Imperium's Inquisition. Useful information has been taken as high as the High Lords of Terror, and what they have learned has shocked them. But we sadly don't get any juice on what that exactly is. We get further information on null ships in the novel Ahriman Exile. To set the scene, Ahriman in the novel is on a ship without a navigator, so Ahriman acts as one for a brief time, letting them exit the Eye and search for a ship around the area of Cadia, which is where they emerge. Weeks pass, and then a null ship comes out of the Eye. Seeing the derelict ship, the Titan Child, the Inquisition can't resist investigating. Their ship, the Lord of Mankind, pushed through the void like a sea. They all wore armour. They had to on the ship. One Inquisitor whose throne is attached to cogitators, watchers, everything. I assume analysing the data the ship collects and watching for potential wrong thinking. The other two Inquisitors sit on thrones too. To the side of each, a figure crouches. They each wear red robes woven with sacred names. They have set up a chronotrap for themselves too. Cogwork whirled behind the circular pane of crystal. Lobel glanced down at the brass frame of her own chronotrap, her eyes reading the movement of the numerals, etched into the silver and brass cogs. "You are correct," said Lobel. "Of course I am," snapped Malkira, and coughed again. The rhythmic pumping of the life-sustaining systems built into the Crone's armour became louder. "We are risking too much. If we divert our course now, a few more weeks and the data will be secure." They were on an augur expedition, a ship sent into the Eye to gather information on its nature and current state. And there are two references there to them wearing some sort of armour, perhaps that lets them survive when they're so far into the warp more than they would normally be able to. The data and lore they carried in their warded sticks was beyond value. It was a glimpse of the face of the enemy, one that might warn them of growing threats or reveal weaknesses. Such expeditions were dangerous in the extreme, and the possibilities of attack and violent death were the most minor of the risk they faced. The Eye itself was toxic to the soul and body. Warp energy and matter overlapped in the Eye, and physical laws became thinned to the point of non-existence. At the edges of the Eye, a weak skin still existed between the two realms, but at its heart, nightmare reigned unchallenged. To venture even partway into the Eye risked corruption. The Lord of Mankind had been crafted specially to make such a voyage. Prayers and wars had been etched into every plate and rivet of her hull. Psychic dispersers and null generators ran through her structure. Any part of the ship could be sealed and flooded with nerve gas should the systems detect an intrusion. Most of the crew were servitors, and almost all of the human crew were kept in stasis until needed. All but the 3 Inquisitors would be executed on return to the Imperium. The risk of corruption was too high. All of them knew this, and yet all still served the master of mankind. It was a fact that caused Lobel to feel puzzlement and admiration every time she looked into the face of one of the doomed but dutiful crew. But the warp not only corrupted, it also made a mockery of time. It was possible for an expedition to spend a handful of months in the Eye and return to Cadia thousands of years later, perhaps where the information they've gathered would be utterly useless, or seconds after they had left, or in the past. There was also no guarantee, so each member of the crew wore a chronotrap. A more was set into the structure of the ship. The traps measured subjective time and exposure to the substance of the warp, slicing it away in a million cog clicks. They investigate the derelict ship. Whilst they investigate, Ahriman and a few others teleport across to the Inquisition ship. Cadian holds off the guardsman, whilst Ahriman kidnaps the ship navigator. As they make to return, they are attacked. The Inquisitors need help, so they unleash Seraphs, who glowed in the warp-tainted air, the warding circuits in their skin crawling with letters and symbols from dead tongues. They had once been ordinary people, taken by the black ships from worlds where they were shunned. Then the Inquisition had taken them and forged them to a new purpose. All their thoughts were transformed into murderous rage. Held by pacifier helms, they became their true selves only when activated by the speaking of ritual words. The ecclesiarchy called such a process arco-flagellation. But the Seraphs were creatures of a higher order. Each was a pariah, a soul with no soul, a creature that cast no shadow in the warp, untouchable by its powers. As they ran through the passage opening, their numbing presence hit the gathering vortex of warp energy like a sea tide meeting lava. But they escaped with the navigator. Ahriman is hit by a bolt shell, and Ahriman has found a marine he had been searching for. Ahriman found him by lifting the information from the mind of one of the members of the Inquisition. It really speaks to me of the power of Ahriman, that he can help a ship navigate out of the warp, penetrate the many protections of the null ship, lift the navigator, and also fight off Seraphs, who themselves are nulls. I wonder, and this is just my speculation, how these null ships work in terms of a Geller field. For those who don't know, a Geller field is a warp bubble generated around a ship when they enter the warp, creating an area of normality when a ship travels through the immaterium. Perhaps the null shielding provides the same protection, or my preferred theory, a psyker is used by a Geller field device to create a warp bubble, perhaps some sort of pariah, i.e. a psyker with no reflection of a normal soul in the warp, is used in a similar way to project a null field for this ship, a stealthy version of a Geller field. It's an idea anyway, and now I turn things over to you. What do you think to these null ships? Do you feel they are worth the sacrifice? Are there other methods of monitoring the warp that might be more effective? Comment down below if you've got any ideas and your thoughts. I'll be interested to hear them. And if you like this video on 40k, you might also